Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Caleb Anderson, Vice President of Portfolio and Engineering at Blue Planet, and I'm here to talk to you about Network as a Service, vision or reality. And essentially in my session today, I'm going to walk through what Network as a Service is, the benefits that Network as a Service provides to a CSP, and some of the tools and tricks you can leverage to really embed Network as a Service as a framework across your digital transformation journey. So before we dive into what Network as a Service is, let's talk a little bit about the vision that our service providers are on, okay? And really what I want to focus on here is this concept of digital transformation and really using automations as the driver for driving differentiation across an intelligent automations journey. And when we look at the types of transformation service providers are on, we can really break it down into three independent transformations, what we call network transformation, deploying new services, things like SD-WAN, bandwidth on demand type services. There's operational transformation, really driving efficiency within the NOC, really delivering things like closed loop automation and consolidation within the various NOCs that make up a service provider. And then there's IT transformation, really breaking down the data silos that exist within our service providers today, being able to do things like inventory and network consolidation and really driving efficiency within the various OSS layers. And ultimately, all these types of transformations are focused on simplifying the introduction of innovative new on-demand digital type services. So what are some of the core challenges our service providers have today? Well, if you actually look at how a traditional OSS and BSS environment has evolved, it's fair to say that it's been built up over many, many years, various layers of legacy, okay? And what that means is that we've essentially got what we call this spaghetti integration that has evolved year on year within a service provider's environment. Various business support systems integrated into various OSS systems, order management, issue management, billing type systems, who then communicate to various network domains and legacy NMS systems that communicate to the network itself. All peer-to-peer integrations, all done uniquely, all driving legacy that's very, very difficult for the service provider to evolve and drive a next generation approach. What's the impact of this? This spaghetti integration, as I like to say, is really holding the service provider back. The ability to be able to upgrade, the ability to drive a next generation approach is very much compromised because of all these peer-to-peer integrations that can easily break if you change or try and do something different. Essentially, there needs to be a better way to be able to support our service providers on their digital transformation journey and get away from this tightly coupled spaghetti integration concept. And the key standards are really focused on driving a common approach that's open and agile that can be the baseline for automation. And if you actually look, there's a common theme that we're starting to see within our service provider standards bodies that is focused on open standards-based reference architectures. All of them are really focused on this concept of leveraging model-driven abstracted approaches to decouple OSS and the network, using standards-based APIs to expose capabilities consistently between the resource layers, network layer, and service management layer. And they're all focused on driving a lifecycle approach to automation, leveraging artificial intelligence, analytics, and assurance to drive a next-generation approach. Let's look at some of these standards bodies. First one, TM Forum, really driving standards-based, TM Forum-based APIs to allow the BSS and services management layer to communicate consistently, and then between the services management layer and the various domain layers. You have bodies like ETSI and its ZSM-based standards that's really focused on zero-touch network and services management. And then you've got bodies like MEF that's really focused on lifecycle-based orchestration, providing MEF design specifications to enable standard services orchestration, all trying to drive consistency and getting away from this spaghetti integration approach that's really driven a peer-to-peer type of model that is not sustainable and cannot allow the service providers to move forward. So what is the approach? Network as a Service is a standards-based framework for really driving digital transformation. Now, this NAS concept, and Network as a Service, has developed over the last few years to really help our service providers tackle their transformation challenges. So what is NAS, or Network as a Service? Essentially, NAS brings together multiple open standards, including TM Forum, ETSI, ONF, and MEF, to provide a framework for automating operations and services lifecycle management. It decouples OSS and the network, allowing service providers to profitably support cloud-like services and deliver on-demand services and business models that are sustainable. Essentially, Network as a Service framework has three guiding principles. Firstly, it separates areas of concern to accelerate evolution and innovation. Secondly, it leverages a model-driven approach via abstraction with open southbound and northbound APIs, so network resources can serve as reusable building blocks. And the Network as a Service model is really lifecycle centric. It combines artificial intelligence, analytics, assurance with orchestration to enable proactive operations in a closed loop based model. Very, very powerful when you actually bring it together to drive a next generation digital transformation approach. And Network as a Service isn't just a theoretical concept. Network as a Service is being deployed today across multiple use cases within our service provider. Let me give you some examples. 5G network slicing, using Network as a Service as a common abstraction layer to drive orchestration and management of a lifecycle of an end-to-end network slice, spanning transport or the network, as well as the virtual packet core, as well as RAN and virtual edge environments, with the services management layer over the top that drives consistency and automation across those various subdomains. Look at something like bandwidth on demand, delivering a self-service end-to-end provisioning of a dynamic Ethernet, OTN or layer 3 type service across a multi-vendor network, being able to take a work order from a northbound system and then decompose it into its various subdomains and then be able to automate and orchestrate across a multi-vendor network, whether that's optical, Ethernet or IP. Or SD-WAN automation, being able to automate SD-WAN services, multi-vendor SD-WAN services in a consistent way that leverages the power of the underlay with the overlay network. So again, being able to take a northbound work order, decompose that via a multi-domain services orchestration layer, and then coordinate the underlay automation with the overlay automation across a multi-vendor SD-WAN type of environment. All real use cases leveraging the NAS concept today. And let me talk about some of the NAS-focused TM Forum-based catalysts that we're actually showing in the market today. And I've got three that I'd really draw your attention to. The first one, edge automation. This is a catalyst that brings together British Telecom, Orange, as well as Telecom Italia Mobile. And it's really focused on this concept of being able to automate edge services on demand. Take a stadium, which is really this use case, and being able to spin up very quickly services that can be delivered to that stadium, such as digital surveillance, such as on-demand based applications, such as bandwidth on demand, deliver it to the stadium in a very, very short period of time, and then tear down those services once that event is completed. The second use case, agile and automated digital enterprise. This is a use case with British Telecom and Verizon. And this is really about being able to drive a consistent way to deliver services to the enterprise, focused on things like unified communication, as well as video collaboration-based services. And in this catalyst, we show and demonstrate how standards such as Tosca, NAS, as well as TM Forum-based APIs can be used consistently to deliver a broad range of enterprise services in a consistent manner. And then the third use case, which is a catalyst demonstration that we showed with AT&T, really focused on automating wavelength-based services, where we show a consistent way to automate the provisioning of wave services, open standards-based wave services, using the TM Forum-based NAS model and ODA, leveraging open APIs, and doing that with measurable outcomes and delivering the service consistently to their enterprise customers. Again, all three very different examples that leverage the NAS concept of open standards and programmability in a consistent way. And the key thing I would flag with NAS, it's not just a concept to drive consistency in terms of how services get implemented within the network. It has measurable and defined business outcomes that I'll share with you now. First example is the AT&T catalyst I just shared earlier, where we were automating essentially NAS for Lambda or wavelength-based services. In that catalyst, we're able to show measurable value, okay, in the areas of operational efficiency, such as a 50% reduction in processing time. It enabled a DevOps environment where they could drive efficiency within their network also, increasing efficiency to the vicinity of 30%, and also reducing software release costs via the consistent integrations that happened across the various layers in their OSS stack. And ultimately, drive innovation to cache, shortened their cycle and release cycle time, which gave them a 50% increase in time to revenue, a 50% increase in provisioning time. It also reduced operational costs, reduced swivel chair by 30%, as well as order fallout by 40%. All very measurable and all going to the bottom line in delivering unique value. And these values have not only been validated in proof of concept, such as the catalyst we talk about, they've been validated in actual customer environments. And the case study I'd share with you here today is the Vocus Group case study, where they've leveraged network as a service to break down their own operational silos. Vocus is a company that's grown through acquisitions, 13 acquisitions over a few years. They've leveraged this NAS concept, this very powerful NAS concept, to drive abstraction and a common layer that breaks down their various acquisition silos. So a consistent way to consume service and then decompose that across their various networks to drive differentiation. What has this done for Vocus? Well, they've had a stated direction of reducing cost in their OSS environment by $30 million and significantly reducing their order to cash cycles. Those results are being realized through this NAS journey by providing consistency, programmability, and a standards-based approach to break down their various network domains. So in summary, what would I like to draw to your attention? Firstly, NAS is not just a vision. It's been implemented with tangible value. Blue Planet provides a comprehensive standards-based NAS framework that decouples OSS and the network to address customer transformation challenges. And Blue Planet isn't just focused on the services orchestration aspect. We're very, very powerful in that services orchestration layer. We're very, very powerful across the inventory and services federation layers, as well as path computation, analytics, and assurance. Essentially, the Blue Planet suite providing a lifecycle-based approach to enable zero-touch lifecycle management, leveraging the NAS model. And the final piece I'd flag is this NAS-based concept allows service providers to support cloud-like services. It's a framework for delivering on-demand services, which is what every carrier is focused on, okay? So they can use this as a concept to roll out the NAS incrementally, supporting various domains, and then add new domains over time. This means that they can really use it as a framework to deliver things like 5G network slicing, bandwidth on demand, and SD-WAN automation as they move on their digital transformation journey. Very, very powerful and very, very practical as a means to deliver these services to your customers. So finally, I'd like to wrap up and say thank you for your time today. Now I'd like to open it up to a set of Q&A and answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Great. So hopefully everyone found that session useful. What I'd like to do now is ask anybody who has any questions to field it in the live chat panel, and I can spend the next few minutes answering any specific questions that the audience may have. While we're waiting for people to ask any questions, the first thing I would flag is a question that's come through is, can you give some examples of actual NAS deployments that have happened today beyond the Vocus scenario? So absolutely I can. So obviously Vocus, a great example that was really focused on consolidating a set of mergers and acquisitions via a standard and programmable framework. Other customers that I've been directly involved with that have been implementing a network as a service type architecture, Windstream, who have been on this network as a service journey for many years, initially phasing in network as a service, initially as a means to automate their optical and wavelength services, then adding to that with their Ethernet services, and then most recently with their SD-WAN based services. So again, having a services management layer that speaks to those various subdomains in a consistent approach, and incrementally adding domains as a series of incremental projects to really achieve this vision. Second customer that is on this NAS journey is Dish. Dish has recently come out with a series of announcements about really deploying an open and programmable 5G network. One of the use cases that they're looking to implement via a network as a service model is basically 5G network slicing. And again, via an end-to-end services management layer, be able to decompose that into an end-to-end network slice, spanning transport, spanning mobile packet core, or virtual packet core, RAN, and then into the virtual edge. And then being able to manage that, not only in terms of an initial static slice, but then being able to assure that static slice and then be able to program back in via a set of policies to make that a dynamic slice based on a set of SLAs. That is a part of the vision and part of their overall rollout plans. A third customer I'm familiar with in terms of their network as a service journey is Telefonica in Germany, that's looking to roll out bandwidth on demand type services spanning layer 1 and layer 2, again using a consistent programmable infrastructure, end-to-end services management layer, and then implementing things like calendaring and scheduling to be able to deliver on-demand services to their customers. So again, just a few of many service providers that have gone on this journey of network as a service. And the key thing is all of them really taking a phased approach. If I look at the next question that has come through the chat is, can you give some insights into how a CSP should implement the network as a service model over time? I think this is a really important point. I know most service providers are scared of big, large transformations that equal significant risk, okay? Network as a service doesn't need to be that, okay? I'm a big advocate of anyone that's going on a digital transformation journey, can they implement it incrementally and phase it in over time? So typically what I've seen with these network as a service models is they generally start with inventory and federating information from their various data sources. One of the challenges that most service providers have is, they've built up, across a set of legacy over time. That means they've got data sitting in various silos. So the first point is break down those network silos and implement a federation layer that sucks the information up to provide a global services-wide view as to what's going on. Like I like to say, you can't automate what you can't see. Once you've got a baseline service and resource inventory, then you can look to start implementing some of the secondary phases of a network as a service model. Implementing an end-to-end services orchestration model that can take work orders and then decompose that into the various subdomains. Then focus on automating a domain, whether it's optical, whether it's Ethernet, whether it's IP, whether it's some type of business services. Typically focus on orchestration of that domain, and then as a subsequent phase, focus on the closed loop action of that domain, being able to take the outputs, assure that domain, implement policies against that to drive closed loop operations, and then take that same cookie cutter approach of automating a domain from the services management layer down, and then add incremental domains over time. What have we learned from this as an approach? We've learned that typically it diversifies the risk. It breaks it up into a set of smaller incremental projects that can deliver a tangible value without having to go big bang over time. Next question was, what are some of the key building blocks of a network as a service model? So I think this is, again, a really important question. So when we look at network as a service, we look at it really across sort of 5 key building blocks. The first one is, as I said, you can't automate what you can't see. So you need an ability to be able to federate and have both a service inventory as well as a resource inventory. Second one is you need an orchestration set of capabilities, services orchestration as well as domain. Third area of focus is really path computation, being able to create dynamic route paths spanning the various layers in the stack so that you can implement things like bandwidth on demand and network slicing based capabilities. Fourth one is analytics and assurance for closed loop type actions for both real-time fault and performance, as well as predictive scenarios. And then the openness and programmability. Openness and programmability northbound in terms of your OSS and BSS layer, and then openness and programmability down into the various network domains itself. With that, I think I've reached the end of my session. So we're going to wrap up momentarily. If there was any questions I couldn't get to, happy to deal with that offline and respond to people appropriately. Hope everyone's found this session useful. And Melinda, I'll hand it back to you and the team. Thank you.